Hello.
Hey everyone.
Good, very wonderful Friday
Afternoon
afternoon, lunchtime.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
evening, depending on where you are.
yeah.
We just would like to see some reaction
A,
to
sh-
that we
a
actually
showing of
are.
hand just to
Yeah,
make sure
show of
that we
hand,
are
just
actually
yeah,
here. Um,
and then we
yeah.
have
No
questions that
questions.
we can start on from Discord.
I think we just these.
3, 2, 1.
My timing is not good. So close. Sorry, and I'm looking down, finding I had it on, and then more came in, and it just bumped me. Give me a second. Let me find it again. We've had a lot of activity on that channel.
Yeah.
Okay. If somebody just wants to say hi or raise their hand, then we'll know for sure that we are actually
Live and people can actually hear us. That'd be great. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dahlia.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Let me just sneeze before I. Thanks, Grace. Harlan. Hey. Excellent.
Good.
Okay.
Do you want to sneeze or read the question?
Can I do both at the same time?
Yeah. Go for it.
Thank you. Okay. It'll make it much more interesting. Okay. So our first question. Oh, wow, that's close. Our first question of the day is from Caesar. Said, "Hi, Pernilla. This question was asked last week in the channels, and I think now I know how to frame it. I've been facing a lot of discomfort at work, feeling some fear of being blamed, failing, fear of receiving too much responsibility and inadequacy, an overall sense of discontentment with the job, like I don't want to be responsible for all this and do this role. My question is, how can we know when we are having a body no rather than just resistance, especially early in this process when there's so much shadow and childhood trauma enmeshed in the challenges of life?"
Yeah.
It's
I
really
completely get that. Do you want to go?
I'm going to blow my nose.
Get some tissue first. That's the sound.
That's the sound.
And you might think that we could have prepared this before we went live, but there you're wrong.
Sniffles happen.
Okay, Caesar, I completely get your question, and I completely get that confusion that can be in you being at your work and you have all that responsibility and you don't want all that responsibility and all of that is piling up, and how do I know if this is a body no or if it's just something that you really need to work with in the fifth fetter, the fourth fetter, and the second fetter. And the analogy I usually use is that if I ask you, do you want to lit your hair on fire? You have a very clear no, I don't want to do that. So if I ask you, are you content with your work? You would go, well, sometimes, and then maybe, and not the response, but maybe. And also, if I ask you, do you want to lit your hair on fire? You don't have, well, let me think about it. Maybe, sometimes, not really. Okay, not sure. Depends
on how much you're going to pay me. When we're talking about a job, it's also relevant to, there are other factors that.
Yeah. So it is very, very clear what a body no is. It is on par with the question, would you light your hair on fire? And you have a very clear, nope, don't want to do that. So to me, it sounds like that the issue that you have at work, it's a fetter 5, fetter 4, and fetter 2 issue. That would be a good idea to look into. And it sounds like there's something about your expectations towards yourself at your job that enough is not enough. It sounds to me like you're doing the +1 game, that you can always do more, you can always engage more, always, It also sounds to me that you might not be that good at feeling into your boundaries and saying no to things that you do not want to do at your work, but you taking more on because of whatever reason. You would know that when you work with it in the second fetter. Do you have something?
Yeah, it's also really good to notice what those feelings of resistance are like. Like when you say, "Is it a body no or resistance?" How is it actually showing up for you? Is
Mhm.
it is it a similar kind of resistance that you felt in other situations like this? Is it something where this is just bringing up more of that feeling of inadequacy or inability to do something, which or fear of being blamed, that's been perhaps a lifelong issue for you? Is it something that if this feels resonant, like, okay, yeah, this is that common issue that is back again and again and again, then there's probably some Feder 2 stuff to work on with it. And that's a good indication that it's not just about that. But it's also relevant to look into, why you're at the job and what it is that you feel like you're getting out of it, what is keeping you there, what is making you, what specific part of the job is it that makes you feel inadequate or like
Mhm.
you're going to be blamed, and if you want to bring this back on Tuesday, we could always, if you have more specifics, we could dialogue more about it and
Yeah.
get a little bit more.
Yeah, because what I would be curious to know more about is that fear of being blamed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And
I would like to have a conversation about that.
yeah,
So if you can come on Tuesday, that would be really good, because that fear of being blamed, there needs to be something specific
exactly.
for that to happen.
And is it
Um,
is it actually relevant to the job, or is this, like I said, something which has been an ongoing concern in other aspects of your life
yeah,
for
yeah.
some time?
Or are you doing something sketchy? Are you
Well,
doing
or
something
that.
sketchy, or being
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
by a boss being told to do
Yeah.
something sketchy
Yeah.
that doesn't sit right with you, that is not ethically correct, but you are
Yeah.
doing it anyway because you've been told that this is the common practices in the line of work that you are, but in you know that this is not right. It could be tons of things. So I would prefer if you or
Yeah.
suggest that you come on Tuesday and we talk about it there.
Yeah. Because even like feelings of responsibility and inadequacy or too much responsibility and inadequacy, that comes from, something much earlier down the road. There's that.
Or it can
Well,
also come from
yeah.
you being told to have more responsibility than you're actually being paid for.
No, that's also
So
possible. Yeah.
you're not compensated for the type of responsibility that you actually have at work.
Yeah.
Then if you were compensated financially or anything like that, you would be more comfortable with the responsibility that you have.
Yeah.
So far it's just me and Todd sitting and guessing.
Yeah.
And it would be
Exactly.
it would be great if you could come Tuesday and we can talk about it
Yeah,
then.
that would be an easier one.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully that
But
gave you
the
something
body
to.
no is very, very clear.
Yeah.
Light your hair on fire. Nope, don't want to do that. That's a body no.
Yeah. Yeah. And just start looking into all of those things that seem to be pointing to how this is relevant to other aspects of your life and why you're feeling, more of why this seems to be an issue for you now. Is this new? Is this something that's been going on for a long time?
Mm.
Yeah, we can go into more of that on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Just kind of start taking note, if you haven't been already, of all the aspects of the elements of the job that are at the moment the most triggering for you.
Mm.
Oh, thank you, Leila.
Amazing.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Lita.
much.
Thank you so much. Oh, donations mean
Thank
so
you.
much to us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's really, really kind.
Now, I just wanted to comment that we did not do this intentionally, but the color coordination thing just
We're nailing it.
kind of happens.
Yeah, we're
I
nailing it.
was noticing that.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. That's
It
funny.
just shows we're very much in the same mood.
Yeah. It's so funny. I have like one shirt this color, and there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next one.
Hannah wrote, Pranilla, I'm going to drop a question about neurodiversity and awakening in case I'm not able to attend the next upcoming meeting. Now that so much masking has dropped away, there's a lot of behaviors coming up that I had suppressed. I basically spent my whole life trying to be effusive and bubbly because some neurodiverse traits were often perceived as being cold, aloof, bitchy. It doesn't feel like reactivity coming from emotions, but the directness of stuff coming out of my mouth isn't exactly compassionate either. I mean, it seems like factual, honest stuff to me, but it unintentionally comes off as hurtful. I feel like I'm learning how to be in the world all over again. I want to be authentic without the veneer of a fake, agreeable personality, but I also very much do not want to hurt people.
Mm.
This is also the biggest sticking point of identification right now. I know this is all just the mind trying to understand what's going on, but it's still catching me because stuff just comes out of my mouth. And I used to be very deliberate in my communication and how I presented because it was really hurtful when people perceived me as bitchy for not making eye contact and being too direct.
Mm.
I'm also asking this question because I see I previously held beliefs that awakening would fix things that are just part of being neurodiverse and not actually emotional reactivity.
Oh, there's so many layers. There's so many layers in
Yeah.
that one. The first thing I would like to address is actually not about neurodiversity, but more about systemic misogyny.
Mm.
That it's very normal for if a man is viewed as straightforward and direct, a woman is viewed as bitchy and in your face. And that's just one of those things that we need to be very much aware of as women and men as well. That the way that we view a person is very much based on their gender, and this goes to all women out there that are watching this, that you can always play whenever you feel that you're too much, or you're speaking too much, or you're too demanding, or you're anything. Try to switch your gender in your mind. If you did this and you were a man, would that be okay? Would that be deemed okay? Would you just be, forward and
Confident.
confident and all of that? Because very, very often we're judging ourselves as women um, from that systemic misogyny that is happening. And as men, it's very useful as well for you guys to sometimes ask yourself, when you do something, when you feel that you are being rejected or you are being, told off or anything. Okay, if I was a woman and I did that, how would that be viewed?
Mm.
To put things into perspective of what you're doing is from a stance of entitlement that is based on your color or your gender or your age or level of education or anything like that. It's always useful for us to become aware of the of the starting point that we have in any interaction that we have.
Mm.
Um, about the neurodiversity, yes, we are very, very direct. As neurodivergent and Asperger's particularly, we are very, very direct in the way that we communicate. And it's not something that you need to change, but you need to be mindful of how that come across to other people. So it's not that you should be any different, but just be mindful. Very often in our everyday life, I very often ask Todd, did I just offend you? What did you understand that was just a joke when I said that? Did I hurt you in any way? Just checking in if me being direct with things or asking questions, is it okay that I ask you that? Because I'm not quite sure where boundaries they lie. To me, it's just like, well, ask me a question and I will answer. That I don't have the same um, boxes that neurotypical people have, and that can very often make other people feel that I'm very in their face and very direct and disrespectful or arrogant or entitled or something like that. So I very often check in, and also with people that I'm not married to, other
Yeah.
people.
And conveniently, you married an open book, so
Yeah,
this one's easy.
it
But
is
other
very,
people,
very
it's a
easy.
little bit harder.
But other
to...
people, I have very often, if I've been at sangha meetings or if I have been, at groups or something like that, if something doesn't sit right with me, for example, the day after I have this feeling there's something that doesn't sit right, then I always go to the person and say, yesterday when I said this and this, are we okay? Did I offend you in any way? And very often they will say, yeah, that actually wasn't okay. And then I can apologize, completely clear it out so there's not an issue. Or if they say, yeah, everything is fine, and I can see something is still not okay, then I say that. You say everything is fine, but I still feel there's something between us. It's just something we can sort out. So I just use my directness to really, with an open heart, apologize if I have done anything wrong or said something that has offended anyone, that I'm very, very open about it and truly, truly apologize, because I do not want to hurt anyone. I do not want to make anybody feel uncomfortable in any way. And that also means that I have no issue when people, they say, yeah, you really were an utter bitch. I don't think I've experienced that, but you really, that was really not nice when you did that. I can truly, truly apologize, because that was never my intention at all. There was another layer in it.
Yeah, the thing about let's see, I previously had beliefs that awakening would fix things that are just part of being neurodiverse and not actually emotional reactivity.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
Well, like, is there a difference? You might want to talk a bit about the shutdown, meltdown thing, like you had said about,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's actually a really good point. As neurodiverse, when we get overwhelmed, when the nervous system get overstimulated, we usually there are two different ways that autists react. One is with shutdown, and the other one is with meltdown. And it's normally that you are only in one category. I have never experienced a meltdown. I have only experienced shutdowns, and that is literally that I start to feel that I'm overwhelmed, and then the body shuts down, and I freeze in a position where I'm catatonic until I can move again and start to move myself in and be in quiet. And with a meltdown, it's more that they feel the same thing, that they feel that they start to get overwhelmed, and things are piling on. And I feel it with that my nose start to run, and my vision starts to get blurry, and I start to jumble up words. So I'm using wrong words for to describe what I'm experiencing. That's usually the signs of my brain have had enough and I need to withdraw. And it's the same when you experience a meltdown. If that's the type of autist that you are, that you experience meltdown, that there's always signs that you need to withdraw, and enough is enough. And it's about respecting those signs. The difference between a meltdown and a rage that you have, which is a fifth feta issue, because the shutdowns and meltdowns are not really fifth feta issue. It's more about second feta. The difference is that in a rage attack that you can have, it comes like that, because there is something happening in the body that is so icky that you do not want to feel this. So you divert your attention away from the body and kick a bin or hit a person or scream and yell of someone, or and that from the outside can look very much like a meltdown, because a meltdown is basically a temper tantrum from an adult, where it's throwing and yelling and screaming, and very, very often self-harming. So it's very much about scratching or banging heads or hitting the face, or again, that's also a very clear difference between a meltdown and a rage, where rage is very outwardly, a meltdown is usually pointed towards the autist themselves, so they are self-harming themselves. The difference is that the meltdown you can feel before it happens. The rage just happens like that. And both are influencing other people. From the outside, to experience a person having rage and screaming and yelling and hitting someone or kicking or throwing things or an adult that is having a meltdown, where it's basically an adult having a temper tantrum, those two experiences from the outside leaves the outside that are experiencing it traumatized, because it is so destabilizing to experience from the outside. And that's why that with the awakening also comes the wish of doing no harm, and also to do no harm towards other people. And that's why working with the fifth feather, so you become more emotional mature. But as an autist, working with the second feather and working with feeling your boundaries of when enough is enough, and withdrawing. And if you don't feel that you can do that, then work with the second feather of how you can learn to accommodate that. Because the way that you leave people in your wake is harmful towards them. What's that?
Yeah, I think that was really, really, really comprehensive.
Good.
Oh. Number 3.
We're sitting and finding the
Yeah.
questions from Discord. People have been asking questions in the thread.
Yeah, which actually we should clarify. So when we set up the Friday Q&A question thread, we notice a lot of people have been responding back and forth and having comments back and forth, which is really lovely. That we love that there's so much interaction and so much where people are helping each other out and doing all that. But the purpose of that actual thread wasn't for conversations back and forth. It was really just to make it so if you wanted a question answered on the Friday Q&A, to just drop it in there. And then we would have a convenient little list of questions that we can answer on here. But
it's super confusing when somebody's asking a question and other people go in and answer. Then when we sit here, I try to write question 1 and tag it up, but then other questions are coming in and people are answering, and it's so confusing. So if you could keep your conversations in either social chat or on some of the other threads, and then just leave the question 1 for questions that you have on for Fridays.
And if you want other people's opinion on it, which is absolutely perfectly valid too, you could ask a question on there, just drop it into the Friday Q&A, leave it, and then also drop it into one of the relevant other chats, and then everybody can kind of go back and forth on it and hive mind it on whatever other text thread is relevant to.
So you both get the hive mind and you get our,
and then we'll just
take on
do our take on it there. So that way we'll just clear up this channel for just keeping it for just this just
Friday
the
Q&A. That would be super helpful.
Yeah. But we definitely love all the hive mindery, so feel free to just also discuss it in the relevant text channels. But thanks for that.
And for example, there was one asking, how do you join the curriculum channel, because there is an issue with the join button for some reason on the curriculum channel, which you can't do on iPhone. You need to be on your computer in the browser, and then the join button comes up. If you're on your phone in the app, then it doesn't come up. So it was super helpful for Caesar to answer that when somebody asked the question. But it would be very helpful if the questions in the Friday Q&A thread is just the questions for us. That would be super helpful. Because we are missing some. Now when we're sitting and scrolling through, we are for sure missing someone.
I'm trying to find the ones that you had tagged. I
think there are 1, 2, 3. It's Patty. Yeah, there we go.
All right, Patty's next. Here's a question for Friday Q&A. I think it's a needs wants for 4th and 5th issue. My husband and I have decided to start getting rid of stuff in our house. We've accumulated a lot of stuff over the 37 years together. I'm finding a lot of attachment to things that I think have sentimental value, like baby clothes and the kids' art projects. They're aged 28 and 31 now. Yikes. Logically, this makes no sense. What is this? And yet, I love the idea of leaving no trace while living and beyond. And Patty was never here. Yeah, I've always loved that idea too. Haven't always lived up to it, but very much love the idea.
when I had my groups in Denmark, we had a full month that was dedicated to feeling into attachment of things, because there are so many attachments that and identification that we have with things that we surround ourselves with, that usually, and the fun thing is that those attachments are directly connected to the second fetter of the aggressive bully, passive aggressive bully, and the chameleon. So it's the foundation of fear, anger, guilt, or shame. And for example, if you have a full basement of things that you do not want to throw out, because you never know, that has a foundation of fear,
Mm.
that something might happen in the future where I will need this particular cardboard box. That is, if I don't have that cardboard box when I'm gonna need it in the future, that would be silly. Then I would have to go out and buy a cardboard box, and I cannot see the logic in that, so I better keep it. And it's like that with everything. Every single one of you can go to your kitchen right now, and in the third and the fourth row of the kitchen cabinets, you can just take what's in there and donate all of it, because it is in the third and fourth row for a reason. You do not use it. Any clothes that you haven't worn for the last year, and I'm not talking about having winter clothes out and having summer clothes out. I'm talking about the clothes that you keep packing down and taking up and packing down and taking up, and you're not wearing it. You will not wear it. And even if you have clothes because you have gained kilos, or you have gained weight, and you have this, when I lose weight, then I'm going to fit into this clothes. First of all, it's indicating that there's something wrong with you right now. There's something not okay with what is here right now, but it will be okay. And when it's okay, then I'm going to go to the attic, pull down my suitcase, and wear all these clothes I have not worn for the last 20 years. That is how I'm going to celebrate. Of course, it's not. You're going to go out and buy new clothes anyway. So there are so many things that we are identifying with and placing identification in. For example, baby pictures, more power to you that you're making baby books for your children with small clips and their footprint and drawings, at least 1 million of the 7 million drawings they have made for you during their lifetime and everything. And when they get married, you're going to give it to them as a gift, and they're going to be so happy. And you have spent 27 years doing that. You have to let that go the moment that you have it. Like right now, let it go. So when you pass that on to your child, when they get married or when they have confirmation or whatever, you have to be okay with them going, "Oh, great, thank you so much," and toss it in the bin. You need to be completely okay with everything. And I'm not talking about that you can't have things that you appreciate, and that we have lots of art stuff on the walls that we have been gifted, or
You've made
bought, or I've made, or but you need to be okay with it not being there anymore. Impermanence, if something happens, if the house burns down, that you have not lost anything. If you got everyone alive out of it, then you haven't lost anything. So there needs to be a freedom without any type of attachment. And the way you do it is that you start with the easy stuff, and that's newspapers, the drawer that everybody has, that we just, the magic drawer, whenever we clean, it just goes into that drawer. You can take that drawer and just put it in the bin. There's nothing in it that's really relevant. Piles on the dining table. I'm looking at us. You can take all the easy stuff first. Shoes that doesn't fit, or clothes that doesn't fit. Give it to somebody that will use it instead of you just having it. Then give it to somebody that is going to make use of it right now. And the same with everything you have double of. And I'm not saying that you can't have two spatulas, because you might have a favorite spatula for one thing and another spatula for another thing. But like, I have had a person in one of my groups. She had 26 cutting boards which is a bit, I get that you need for your onions and that you have a favorite one for salad, another one for herbs and stuff. But 26 different, I mean,
That's a lot.
things, that's a lot. Um, so everything you have duplicates or triplicates of. And again, I'm as an artist, when I find a dress or a shirt that I really like that is rare, so I usually buy two or three of the exact same
Mhm.
thing. That I so because I enjoy wearing the same thing, or you know, yeah, yeah, I enjoy wearing the same things. Um, so buying the same thing of that is okay, but it needs to be used. It can't just be lying. And another thing is also, and I'm looking at my husband when I say this, when you have socks with holes in or underwear with holes in or something, and you have new stuff, wear the new stuff, toss the old stuff. If it's something that you look at your socks and you go like, I can't even donate that to charity, but I'm gonna wear them anyway.
Hmm.
Don't wear them. Don't wear them. Value yourself. And yeah. So it's also very much about value. Um and it's very much about, I think, that one of the reasons why we accumulate so much stuff is that it's a bit what you talk about, Patty, that we have that need to prove that it actually happened. I have this movie ticket from my first boyfriend, and he left me, but I have this ticket to prove that the love did happen. So it's like we have proofs of experiences that they actually happened. But if you really, really think of it, that was not you.
Mm.
It happened to another meat suit that was there when you were 17. It's not the same meat suit that's here now. And the thinking of it um, is usually enough. You do not need a movie ticket to remind you of, his smile, or, you know,
Mm.
I don't know. And it's also difficult when, um, oh, I had a girlfriend once that she had an aunt. Her husband had an aunt, and by mistake she said that she really liked teddy bears, and the aunt started to give them teddy bears. And every time she was visiting, she brought teddy bears to Anne, to my friend. And it was becoming a joke. They had boxes of
Yeah.
teddy bears, teddy bear salt pepper set, teddy bear towels, and teddy bear, yeah,
Yeah.
everything, plates and cups and teddy bear everything, and small figurines and everything. And when the aunt was coming and visiting, they took the boxes
Yeah.
down from the attic and put up all the teddy bear stuff everywhere. And when she left, they packed everything up again. It was just, but not to hurt her
Yeah.
feelings. So they, like I spoke with my friend about, so you rather lie to her and make her
Yeah.
believe, that you love teddy bears. She's buying that out of a good heart.
Yeah.
You could just be honest to her and saying that I actually grew out of the teddy bear. I'm not into that anymore. Now I'm
Yeah.
into plants.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was also gonna say, and you tied into some of this already, but when it comes to things like your kids' clothes and things like that seem to have sentimental value, look into what is the feeling if you were going to get rid of it that comes up. And like
Mm,
you said, in some cases it's coming from a place of fear that, well, I might need this thing, or there might be scarcity, or I might not be able to get it again, or whatever. But if it's something of a sentimental nature, is it that there's guilt? Does it feel like you're throwing away the kid's childhood or throwing
mm,
away your memories? Is there fear that you are not going to be able to remember it if you don't have a physical reminder to occasionally bump into and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, would have forgotten all about that? Is it a way of actually retaining some feeling of tangibility and roots to a past that is no longer here? um really get into the body, and when you're just do it, you don't have to actually physically throw it out, but do the mental game
mm.
of it, and pretend that you have thrown this out, and then see what you would feel in the body, and then that gives you an idea of where the work needs to be done. And if oh, lost it, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing I would like to say is also, I mean, how many times have you been to a theater or a zoo? You've been traveling and you went to a museum and You get those pamphlets, and you go like, ooh, how many of them have you read lately?
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong with doing scrapbooks. I mean, I'm the queen of scrapbooks and notes and all of that. I absolutely love it, but I have no attachment to it. I do not expect my children to sit down and read through them after my death. I might actually want them not to, but there's a, to get deeper insight about me and all that, there can't be any attachment to it. That would be unhealthy identification.
Yeah, and it was there. It came while you were talking, and
Do you
it
want me
went
to talk
again.
again?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to bring it up. Oh God, that is so funny.
Todd, he's in writing mode.
Yeah,
and he's really book Todd. We have at the moment
more in edit. Yeah, it's like editing mode.
Editing, writing mode. So this is
slightly off.
You're not off. You're just in book mode.
Okay, I like that framing.
Yeah.
No, what are you saying? so not helpful.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, well, okay. So one thing I was going to say is, there is that idea of like, you just take a picture of everything that you want, and then you throw away or donate the real thing, and you keep the picture. But even that, it's like, that's where I was going. What is the goal of I get when you say like, you want to like leave no trace, and I've been there, and ironically, I've seen this from multiple different angles where I don't have kids, and before we were together, there was the idea that like, I really should just start emptying out the house and basically just getting it down. So when I die, whoever's here or whoever has to take care of it has the least amount of work to do, and I'm not passing anything on to people. Like, again, I don't have kids that it's going down to. And I already, like, when my aunt died, we had tons of photo albums that came over. And so we passed them around to all my cousins to like take whatever they wanted. Still have a lot of them back. But like, it's the idea of like, I'm sure some family members are going to want certain family things, but beyond that, there was no connection to like, I need to preserve something of me for posterity, or for, the next generation who's going to remember me or something like that. So I've been through that. It does actually feel a little bit different now, ironically, being married and being with you, that it's like, it would feel weird to get rid of like my childhood photo albums and stuff that I feel like if I died first, you would actually appreciate having around. And so I think there is something where if you think your kids are actually going to use or want the thing,
but then ask them.
Exactly.
But it's also, and I'm also aware that, if I had asked my son like 5-10 years ago, would you like these photo albums? He would have gone like, nah. But now when he has a child, it's suddenly fun for him to sit and look through the photo albums and all that.
Yeah.
But that actually leads me to another thing, and that is the pile of poop. I would like to talk a little bit about the pile of poop. And you know what I mean when I start to talk about it. It's that thing that you really, you don't use it, right? You don't use it. And you don't really have any use for it. But you cannot make yourself touch it. So you pass it on to someone else. That is a pile of poop. You're passing the poop on to someone else so they can deal with it. Please be careful about not starting to pass the pile of poop, because if you don't want it, and don't give anybody else, like you say with the albums that was giving around to everybody, and then they came back to you. There's nothing left in them, right? All the good stuff have been taken. So
actually,
you're sitting.
They didn't really take that much.
But you're sitting with a pile of poop.
Yeah.
And that is just, smelling in the basement. So also be mindful about that when you start to do that. And I know it's I think actually there's written a book. It's very normal in the Nordic countries that we do what is translated into death cleaning. It's something that you're mindful about the imprint that you leave on people when you die, because there's going to be a lot with the estate, and there's going to be a lot with with lawyers and they're grieving and all that, they don't need to also be, gifted your old underwear and socks with holes in that you couldn't deal with. All the piles of poop that you have stored in attic and basement, everything in the attic and in the basement, you basically can, pass on to others because you haven't used it. You haven't used it. Somebody else can actually use it right now. So there's something to be said about clearing out and all these things and sorting it out while you are still here. It's your responsibility to do it. It's not something that you should pass on to others. Yeah, that was a long one.
That was. I just wanted to check in with the chat and see. Leela Devi had said, "Thank you for this gender clarification. Also, the question could be mine." Caesar said, "Hi."
Which one? What was that?
Your gender clarification.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Patty said, "Good to be here and see you." Oh, Caesar, thank you so much for answering our question. I'll try to attend the Tuesday meeting. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Patty, oh wow, what a beautiful response. I even have the locket from my first boyfriend. There you go. And tons of concert tickets. Thank you for taking the time to respond. Of course.
It is so funny. So I have these 7 engagement rings. Like I said no to all of them, and I have these engagement rings. And this one, he was real asshole. And this one, he actually cheated on me. Why do you keep it? Why do you keep it? Yeah,
that is so funny. That's so funny.
Instead, then I actually, like I said, when I was having the groups in Denmark, that we would take lots of these stuff, and for example, if there was jewelry and stuff like that, people would give it to homeless people, and that means you can't give it to a homeless person, because if they go to a pawn shop, they might be accused for stealing it. So you take a homeless person, go to the pawn shop and say, I have this ring, give the money to that dude, or give the money to that person, because you can't just give jewelry to homeless people. They will get in trouble for that. But it's a beautiful thing to do. And also now when it starts to get colder in this part of the world, if you have blankets and you have big jackets and boots and stuff like that, go to homeless shelters, go to areas where there are homeless people, and go and give out all the clothes and all the things that are there. And if there's particular valuables among it, you need to make sure that they're not getting in any kind of trouble.
Yeah, that's interesting. Leila said, I've been erasing a lot of hard drives lately. It's amazing. So many photos, videos, and writing completely gone in a few seconds.
Yeah.
Shows how ephemeral all this stuff is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate the discussion of identification with stuff as an extension of identification of the body. Yeah.
It absolutely is. And it is one of those things that we like to talk about, awakening, and we like to talk about it, from in a certain little box.
Yeah.
That's super comfortable. But the moment we start to talk about embodiment of the awakening, I don't want to do that. When we start to talk about looking at your diet, the entire third fetter, there are 10 pointers in the third fetter. And if you forgot about them, go back and look at it, because all this is very much a part of it, about all the different types of identification that we can have, where we are locking ourselves into a little box. There's also another thing about it, that all the things you have accumulated is a reflection of who you were.
Yeah.
Going forward, there probably won't be many of those things that you will, do again. And I'm not talking about that you should throw out all the yarn, because now you're never going to crochet again. You don't know if you are, but it's more like other stuff which you identified with, which you might not be into anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always an interesting topic, because I think so many of us have different aspects of this for different reasons. And we have such a complicated relationship with stuff, especially in this culture, and the accumulation of it just for fun, for status, for, like you said, for memories, and for holding on to, I went to a theme park and now I have a map from it, and it's
I actually feel like I could translate some of the material that I had for it might be a project I want to do next year then, and put it into the third fetter about about really getting de-identifying with all the stuff that you have, because it's also how many furnitures or things in your house do you have that are broken,
Yeah.
that needs to be fixed? How long have they been broken, and how long have they not been fixed? Why do you hold on to it when it's broken and you know it's not going to be fixed?
Yeah.
When you now with phones, we have so many pictures of so many things. And for example, when we're traveling, very very often we have like, oh, look at this picture. Yeah, this is us in Copenhagen. This is like, no, Todd, he's outside of the picture, you can't see Todd. This is, and you can find that picture on Google. There's no point of you having that picture if you don't have anybody on it that was there with you. And right outside of, it's not on the picture, but outside of the picture there was a cafe. It was so great, instead of having pictures of it. And also, if you have pictures of people that are not kind to them, we all have those chewing faces on pictures, right? Sitting in the middle. You don't need to, if the person is not comfortable with being remembered of that, like that, when they're not here anymore, then delete the picture.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, nowadays with everything being digital, like Leila said, most of what we have is going to be completely gone and erased, if not before we're dead, then certainly afterwards, because it's not even like physical photo albums that are being passed on for hundreds of years. It's all just stuck on a phone that eventually is going to be inoperable, or backed up to a cloud that your ancestors aren't going to have access
because
to,
they don't know the password.
Exactly.
And the phone to restore the password is not in function anymore. Exactly. So it's just lost.
It's lost. Yeah. So I think we're heading into more and more of like obsolescence of memories or something, where all of this is going anyway.
Yeah. And then now when we're just at it, make sure that your affairs are in order. Make sure that it's clear what happens when you die, that it's very clear who gets what, that your testament is in order. Even though if you don't own anything, it's still a good idea. My mom, she has for the last 30 years been writing names on the back of her things in her apartment. So just make sure all that is sorted, so it's easier for people when you're not here anymore.
I was so grateful to my aunt, because I was the executor of her will, and before she went in for surgery, she took me through the house and she showed me, she had gone through and she had made a list of all of her accounts, all of her passwords, all of her people to contact, the lawyer and the number, then a whole so all of the legal stuff, all of the financial stuff, everything was laid out with every institution and the passwords and everything there. And then there was another whole list of like specific stuff that she wanted left to specific people. And so there was just pages of, this candelabra goes to these people.
Is for Janice.
Exactly. Well, but ironically, it was funny because it was a lot of things where like somebody had given it to her, so then she wanted them to have it back. So there was like all of this stuff, and so all of that was laid out. And she even walked me through like, this is what she wanted to be buried in, and all of that, which made it very, very easy for me in that regard, to do that. And so I've kind of aspired to that, and recommend everybody who, if you think you might die at some point,
if you have an inkling that will happen to you too,
death is a possibility for you
at any point,
then for whoever is going to have to deal with your estate afterwards, I highly recommend doing something like that, because it is like the most generous and compassionate thing you can do for whoever is going to have to deal with your estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you go through all your things and look at it, pretend that you're not you. Pretend that you're somebody coming in, and just, it's so easy to go nope, 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 nope with things. Yeah.
Okay. I think we've exhausted that topic.
Completely went through that one.
And I think we have one more. Yeah, we're caught up. Oh wait, no, actually, we're not caught up in the chats, are we? Are we? Oh yeah, I thought. That's funny. It looked like, oh no, it's not that. Okay. It looked like the little thing wasn't there, but I think I was just seeing like the window behind it. Okay, we have one more question so far that I'm aware of. Where are you? Here we go. Oh, sorry, fifth question too. They're rolling in. Okay, Andrew had said, would be great if you guys could talk about this below. Thanks, guys. Quote, I am not in control of anything, unquote. So can I focus awareness on body sensations if I'm not in control? I often think, why do we need to practice if it's happening by itself? But then maybe it's not me practicing. So
it's about causes and conditions.
Yeah.
Do you want to start up?
Sure. Yeah, it's a really great question. And it's one that we get variations of all the time. That on the ultimate level, yes, of course, there is no Andrew to be practicing. There is no one to do the thing that we think is being done. But it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that stuff doesn't get done. If it's taken in like that, first of all, it's effectively a belief, which is changing the causes and conditions going forward. So to start with, if we say to do a practice where you are sitting and inquiring into what it feels like to be identified in this moment, or focusing awareness on your left big toe, if it feels in that moment like you can do that, then that's a good place for you to look into, well, why does it feel like I can do this? And, how the whole mechanism is working. But on the sort of ultimate level of it, there is no Andrew who's choosing to practice in that moment. There is an incredibly complicated web of causes and conditions that have led up to Andrew either taking that bit of suggestion and actually implementing it and focusing whatever awareness seems to be on whatever this big toe seems to be, or there could be any number of other possibilities of him waiting to do it later, maybe not doing it now, maybe never doing it, maybe thinking this is all a bunch of nonsense. Like, all of these possibilities are there. When the practicing happens, it's not because there is an individual Andrew in there who's taking the reins and steering the horse towards awareness of the big toe. It's just, this is how things actually are shaping in this moment because of an unfathomable amount of causes and conditions. If there's an idea then that, well, there's no me, and so there's no one to actually do anything, so I can't actually practice, that is yet another condition which is causing another whole potential set of behaviors in the future, which is probably not going to lead to meditation or practicing. It might lead to just being lazy and sitting around. It might lead to you taking up racquetball. It might lead to any number of unexpected consequences, because that's just simply not in the realm of sitting and putting awareness on the big toe. But none of that has an Andrew involved in the core of it. It's really information in, information out, or action out. And the information that you're taking in when you're doing this kind of work and talking to spiritual teachers and meditation teachers and all of that is that they're giving you information that this can be a helpful thing to do. And effectively, I like the metaphor of just planting a seed, where we're basically putting a seed in the ground. If it grows into something, it grows into something, but we don't know. And the reason why it will grow into something is because most likely that ground has already been tilled and fertilized and the soil has been prepped. And so that seed has some place to bloom, and then it just happens. If that ground isn't ready, I could go up to just any random person on the street and say, hey, you should put your awareness on your big toe. And they're probably going to turn away and get away from me as quickly as possible because, lunatic talking about their toe. The ground has not been prepped for that. There's no reason that they would take that suggestion on and do something with it. But it doesn't mean that there is somebody in there who is intentionally refusing to take on that suggestion, just like there's no Andrew in there who is intentionally choosing to take on the suggestion and do something with it. It's all out of the realm of free will or, possible choice and doing. But if it feels like you can do it, then try it out. And it probably, if there's an inclination there, if it happens, then that's basically how it was meant to happen. If it doesn't happen, then it's not the right moment in that time for it to happen. The ideas about it, though, the reason I'm just adamant about not taking on the philosophy of there's no need to do anything is because that itself is going to make you less likely to do anything. It's effectively salting the field. So you're saying, well, I can still throw seeds in there, but now I've salted it and nothing's going to grow there anyway, because now that's a new thing, which is contaminating the soil.
Yeah, I also want to say that there's also really, when you then have tilled and prepped and fertilized the ground, there's also really something to be said about the practice itself. That practice of slowing down and zooming in and noticing, we talked about this morning, that the first, it's because I would like to make a video where I talk about how you can do the cessation meditation. And cessation meditation is basically that you meditate and everything stops. It is basically a type of death that is happening, because there's no body and there's no consciousness and there's nothing for 4 hours straight. And the person that you are when you come out of the meditation is not the person that went into the meditation. But to get to that meditation, you need to prep everything to be there. And the first step is the see, hear, feel. And that, no matter if you want to do cessation meditation or you just want to prep the soil, see, hear, feel is amazing, because it is taking you out of your thoughts about what is happening right now. It's taking you out of the thoughts about what you're seeing or hearing or feeling, and really putting you into a very, very direct experience of what is alive right now. And I really think that Tully has nailed it down for the last 20 years, that there is just this now. There is nothing else. There's just this now. And it is basically what we do with the Awakening curriculum. It is really releasing all of those types of identifications and attachments that we can have to things, that is keeping us from being present in this moment, which is our thoughts, which is our starting points. So there's something also to be said about sitting down in silence and slowing down, zooming in, and do the see, hear, feel. And when you absolutely, you can snap in and out of that like that. Even when you're out walking or when you're doing the dishes or anything, you can just directly go into that state of see, hear, feel without any issue. Then you can move on to the just sitting, where you allow any sensory experience to arise and disappear without noticing, and you experience it, but you do not notice or attach anything to it. And there's really something to be said about that, and that only happens with time. You really need to practice it, like learning a motorcycle, or roller skates or anything like that. You really need to practice to be able to do that. And it's only working because you are creating a new set of causes and conditions. So because you know that if you have done a few meditations and done a few of Todd's inquiries, where he says, settle in, make some deep breath, feel how you're falling into gravity. Just by hearing that, by breathing like that, you're there right away, because you've done it multiple times. If it's the first time, you can't even hold what he's talking about. Breathing, what breathing? Where? I'm already thinking about the grocery shopping tomorrow. You need to practice, and really practice that type of concentration that there is in the non-attachment of just being.
Speaking of See Hear Feel, I
Yeah.
just wanted to give a plug. This is completely unrelated to us. We have no affiliation with them whatsoever, but I'm a big fan of the See Hear Feel practice, which was, started by Shinzen Young. And actually, when is that? I think it's next week or the week after.
No, I think it's the week after.
Is it the 5th?
No, week after.
6th? Oh wait, this is November. Sorry guys, 1 second.
15, 6. No, babe. Oh my God,
Okay,
give me that.
While you figure out the date.
No, I already know the date.
Oh, well done. When is it?
It's
That's not the date.
It is.
No.
It is.
But we no. Well, you figure out the date. If you look up unfettered mindfulness.
Here we have it.
No, sorry, unfettered mindfulness. There it is. Unified mindfulness. Sorry. Wait, is it the 20th? I thought I started before that. Yeah, there it is. So it starts on the 17th?
17th.
Okay. So unified mindfulness, which
we're not connected with them
we're
at all.
not connected with them at all. But they have a free retreat that they do every year. It's called Immersion 20, whatever the year is. So if you look up Immersion 2025, unified mindfulness.
How about 2024 first?
Is it really? Yeah, it is. Okay. If you look up Immersion, I am clearly not here. If you look up Immersion 2024, unified mindfulness, October, I think it's 17th. It's like the week of the 17th. It usually starts on a Monday or Tuesday, which is why that's weird. But look it up. It used to be a 7-day one, I think. Anyway, it's free. I've done it a couple times in the past. It's virtual and it's been really, really amazing. I hope to at least do like check in with some of it, because they have there's always like one room that's just silent sitting.
Okay, it starts on the 16th to the 20th.
Thank you. Okay, 16th through 20th.
Yeah.
So there's like one channel that it's on Zoom, and you basically there's like silent sitting with like very light guidance for like most of the day. And then there's another channel that has tutorials on the See Hear Feel practice, and then every year is different. They have like different groups, and it's been a really, really excellent thing. And again, it's free and it's amazing, and I just recommend it.
Yeah. It's not about awakening. It's
interesting because
meditation retreat.
It is a meditation retreat. However, because you get, the See Hear Feel practice is so powerful that it can be just a meditation thing, or you can have some pretty deep non-self insights. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed last year, we didn't do it last year, but I was the year before
we tried
that.
To do it last year.
Yeah, but the year before that, I remember there are check-ins each night, and there were people who were having very distinct like first and sixth fetter experiences where like everything was two-dimensional, or they had these complete losses, and it's really interesting to watch.
What I meant was that it's not they're not referring to it as the second fetter and sixth fetter.
No, well, it's not fetter based.
That's what I'm saying. It's not what we're doing at all.
It is awakening based, but not fetter based.
Yeah. So it's not at all what we do.
No, but I highly recommend it.
Highly recommend, because it's an amazing experience, and it's a free retreat that are working with the See Hear Feel.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
It is awakening based, but it's not. They're not going to use any of this kind of terminology.
It's not this awakening based.
No. but yeah, it's a really good a good one that I definitely recommend you check out if you can.
We should have coordinated that before we started to talk about if we have confused anybody more than we have given reassurance, then I apologize.
Okay, so we have another one.
Did we answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah, we did.
Let's see. Question 5. Harlan asks, a commonly used first fetter inquiry is to look and see if you can find an I in the body or the mind. People usually report that one cannot be found. This seems like a flawed exercise. The reason being is that just because you can't find something, it doesn't mean it's not there. Maybe it exists in a form that we can't recognize. For example, maybe the I that is the doer, the planner, the decider exists as neurochemicals that we don't have the capacity to detect. Obviously, I'm missing something that everyone else seems to understand. Maybe I'm taking the term looking too literally. Can you help me understand how looking for an eye is done? Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that exercise of looking and not finding, because exactly you can't find it. And it doesn't mean that you don't continue your day with identifying. So what I prefer doing is noticing how much you are thinking about things and how much is actually happening in reality. And by reality, we mean through the senses, through what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And how much do you think about what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch? Because it's paving the way for all 10 feathers, where you start to become very, very clear on what is in your direct experience and what is a belief. What is in your direct experience? What is a thought? What is in your direct experience? What is in your assumptions? So it's very much in the first feather I talk about that the difference between fantasy and reality. And everything that is not happening right now in this snapshot in your direct experience is fantasy. And there's nothing wrong with fantasy at all, but it's where the eye lies. It's where the eye lies. It's where everything is very self referential and all thoughts are about something, which means it's not about the experience right now. It's about something in the future or something about in the past. It's not what is present right now, because you cannot place the I in that. What do you want to say?
It's a big
Because
topic because
you can
I
do
yeah.
the feeling of the eye, because you done LU, you
Yeah,
guided through
yeah.
LU.
Well, and that's the thing is I have used a lot of those kind of practices, and I still use a lot of those kind of practices. But it's true, it's and I've heard that kind of the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence kind of a an issue. I think where it is because you're not trying to be conceptually uh, convinced that there is no I. So if it was okay, well, if there's an I here, if there's a self here, and like some if for some reason it feels like it's in my hand, I have to just look in my hand, and if I can't find it, well, then I'm convinced that it's not there. That's not really what we're saying. There is something a little bit hard to identify why it happens, but there is something about doing a practice where you are using direct experience, again, not in thought, but in your direct experience of all of your sense fields, to try to look for what it is that seems to be like an I, because there's an assumption that an I exists.
Mm.
The question is, where is your proof that that I exists to begin with? You have a feeling that an I exists, right? And so what we're really doing is trying to investigate all of those places where that might be deriving itself from. So you're basically starting off with a premise where the burden of proof is on the one who is saying that the self exists, even though I can't actually tell where it is. So what we're going from is like, how do I prove to myself then that the self does exist? Right? What proof are you looking or can you find that proves that this thing is real? And then effectively, the more we look for it in these different ways, the more you are not just logically convinced that, well, I can't find it, so I guess it's not there. There is something about the experience of its fabrication that can actually change when you are doing these practices, because we don't really know how it is manufactured. Scientifically, it seems that there are elements of the brain which work together to create some of these different um, feelings of being a self located in space with a time and a narrative history
Could
and
you
all of
go into
that.
that?
Well, I mean, we don't know enough. Oh, thank you so much, Leila.
Oh,
We so
amazing! Thank
nice.
you.
We don't know enough about all of it. We talk about the default mode network and things like that, but we don't have enough information at this point to say for sure that this is causality and not correlation or something like that. But to just give you the sense that just because it's these things are happening, there is something that happens when you do these practices, And again, talking about the brain, it does appear that when they do scans of people who have done long-term meditation or inquiry practice and who have lost that sense of self, those regions in the default mode network and other places do seem to be deregulated or turned down or turned off. And so there seems to be a correlation there in some way. But again, it's we don't know exactly how it happens, but there is something about doing those practices where you turn inward and you look for, what is it in my direct experience right now that feels like a self?
Mm.
I know I'm located somewhere in here. It feels like a me. It feels like I can do something. And so then we just go through the direct experience to see, what does that actually feel like? It's a very nebulous thing to say, I feel like a self, or I feel like I'm here. So we need to get really specific. Well, is there some physical tension that is correlated to that? Does it physically feel like a density? Like, I am here, I am solid, I am, I can feel the weight of me. Well, what are you actually feeling? Take the I off of it right now, because that's just a label, it's an assumption. So just come down to your physical experience and feel what sensations are jumping out as being the ones that feel heavy and dense and centrally located in me, and see if those are actually proof of you, or if those are just more muscular tension. Are they tingling in the body? Are they some sort of other buzzing, heartbeat, breath coming in and out, diaphragm expanding, movement of the eyes, etc.? So you get really familiar with that. If you have mental images, ideas, thoughts about yourself and what that implies, it's getting really familiar with the visual mental experience and the auditory mental experience that is providing this catalyst for the feeling of being a self who's located here. And for whatever reason, again, we don't really know why it works, but the more you have broken these things down over and over again, sometimes it only takes like one time for the rare person, and other times it takes years and years of doing this in different ways. But generally speaking, there will be some sort of either a spontaneous large shift or break where this changes, or a gradual loosening and eroding away of it, where that feeling of being a self is not manufactured the way that it once was.
Mm.
There's a feeling of openness, expansiveness, where those sensations are still there, but they no longer mean self anymore. The ideas and the mental images of a body and a face might still be there, but they don't equate to the I that they once did. So what we're really doing is just looking for why it is that I believe that is an I. And again, it's not to come to a logical, conceptual conclusion. There is something that just happens by doing the practice that shifts either the creation of that illusion to begin with, or its ability to be believed and made solid the way that it once was. I've used the metaphor of, being in a dark room and thinking that you see a monster in the corner, and it really feels like a monster. You can feel the sensations of it, that like, I feel terror in this moment. I can feel the heart racing, and I can feel this experience of what it's like for there to be a monster in the room. And then when you turn on the light, you see that it's just clothes and a lamp, piled on a chair. And that in itself breaks that ability to believe now that that is a monster again. You know what it is, you've seen it, and so that reaction just doesn't happen. And it's a very similar kind of thing, where what was once felt to be a very clear sense of an I, a sense of a me, a self, a Todd, whatever, that doesn't coalesce into something the way it used to be. The furniture is still there, the clothes are still there, the lamp is still there, but it doesn't become a monster. The sensations are there, the mental images, the sounds in the head, the voice, the dialogue in the head can still be there, but it doesn't equal the me that it once did.
Mm. I'm also thinking this. I find it very helpful as well um, to look into that sensation of an I that is there if I'm not adding a thought. My favorite quote is the what happens to a thought when you don't think it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You cannot find the I anywhere unless there's a thought. Okay, so are you your thoughts? What happens then to the I when you're dreaming? Are you then in the dream, or where are you? Are you on pause? So really, really look into that, because you cannot find the I anywhere outside of thoughts. It's only happening in thoughts, and it's also why all those exercises, they are brilliant and wonderful and really, really good, but they can also manifest, emphasize the I experience that is there, because all of it is self-referential, as if there's an I that can look into all this. You cannot do that without thoughts. In your direct experience, we're not using thoughts at all. It's just what is arising right now. So it's more the practice of being right now without thought, and just being and experiencing what is arising and falling away, and arising and falling away.
Yeah, and again, it's a way of stimulating an experience as opposed to a conceptual understanding.
Yes. Yeah, because that can be a trap. That's also something I would like for you to really be aware of. Whenever you land on something that you think, this is it. This is the truth. I now know it. I know that there's no self. I'm so sure of it. You have to question that. Yeah. You have to really, really be diligent and notice if that is just a new belief. Is that now just a new concept that you have adapted into, and now that is your new belief, that you're still Harlan, but not without the I. I mean, nothing has changed. It's just verbal formations of something. And that is we've talked a lot about this for the last 2 weeks, actually, about that danger of what we're doing when we're having groups like this. Because it's very much about, we do not want to harm anyone with us having groups like this. We do not want anyone to leave and believe that there is something that is achievable or something else than what you are experiencing right now that is better, or we do not want that at all. And it is, when you look on YouTube and you look at all the different channels there are and all the different suggestions that there are a lot out there that is just emphasizing that experience of an I that can be new and improved and better than what is here right now. So it's something we have talked a lot about, how we can support the best way without making anybody believe something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have one more.
I just want to say again, thank you for the donation.
Yeah,
it means so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Well, let's see. All right, we have a couple things actually. Let me turn to the chat first, and then Sis said there's a planner called "I'm Dead Now What" available on Amazon. Oh, that's helpful. Terry said, or in case you get hit by a bus. Yeah, exactly. Achi said, hi, first of all, I am beyond grateful for everything you are doing. My question is it normal that after doing a lot of emotional work, I feel worse than before?
Yes.
I am more reactive than I used to be. I feel more helpless, confused. There's a lot of sadness and so much anger. Is it a part of a process, or am I doing something wrong? And how important is it to understand why I feel what I feel? I feel it really hard to understand. I find it really hard to understand. Is it okay to just let it be, or should I try harder to investigate it? I didn't have the awakening, by the way. Not sure if it's relevant at all.
No, there's a lot of things in it. The first thing I would like to say is, yes, it's very, very much normal to experience that. Because if you imagine that you have been sleepwalking for your entire life, and then suddenly you start to realize that, oh, there's something beneath the neck. There's actually a full body, and all that body is experiencing contraction and is experiencing a lot of things, and there's lots of emotions arising all the time, and you're suddenly opening up for all that. And it's why we are really emphasizing working with the second fetter. The second and the third fetter is so, so important. in what we call the foundational fetters, which is the first, the second, and the third fetter. It is like a triangle, that one is leading to the other, and and the more you work with one of them, the deeper you can go with the next fetter, and then it bites in its tail, and you can just go deeper and deeper and deeper in it. When you have that feeling of that there's more reaction, it depends on what you mean with more reaction. If it's that you're reacting outwardly, like with anger and all of that, when you come to the fourth and the fifth fetter, you're going to be told that you need to go back to the second fetter because you're diverting. All reactions that we have is usually a diversion of something that is happening inside that is icky to be with. We do not want to be with that. So therefore we react on the outside. If your reaction is that you burst out crying or burst out laughing or is completely numb, do not know what to do, and you just feel paralyzed and not sure what you want to do, again, it's a good thing. There's something that is beginning to shake. There's something that is starting to have a movement about it, where you get closer to what is actually happening and not what you think is happening. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean,
There was.
Yeah, no, I really like what you said. There was also, because what I was gonna say is, I think you're actually kind of hit it anyway. Being aware when you say that where was it? Yeah, I feel more helpless, confused, and there's a lot of sadness and so much anger, and that you're more reactive. It's obviously, I don't know what kind of emotional work you were doing and what that actually means. The one thing is to make sure that you're not reinforcing the stories behind it and creating more of a sense of identity. And especially, you said that you haven't had an awakening. So there is a possibility that if that self structure, that self feeling is still very strong, that you could, as you're doing this sort of thing, still be reinforcing that sense of victimhood, of being the one who has been through it all, the one who has these problems. And then that, like you said, that reactivity, even the anger itself, is a way of deflecting from feeling that ickiness, that uncomfortable sensation in the body that's there. Could be when you are doing this work, but it can be any other point in the day. Anytime there's something that brings up some sort of emotional, any sort of emotion. And like you had said, the more we do this stuff, the more sensitized we get to it. And so you could be in that uncomfortable middle ground where it's like you might have been living your life totally numb to how uncomfortable you really were. Now you've started to become sensitized to it. So now you recognize the discomfort, but you don't really have the tools yet to be able to have like the expansiveness around it and just allow it to be there, or to fully go into it and just allow it to burn itself out in a couple seconds. There might still be thoughts that are reinforcing it, that are identifying with it, that are making it into something more, so that it actually seems so much worse than it used to be.
And it's really why the curriculum is important. It's so important to do the curriculum, because you get all the tools there. You're literally taken by the hand and going through and opening all the doors in the rooms, and there are exercises so you can be with it, and you can look into it, and you can write down, and you can inquire about it, and you can really notice what it actually is about. Because like Todd said, for the majority of us, we are completely numb. And especially if we have had a dysfunctional childhood, there has been put so many lids on that, so we could have a functional adulthood. And when we start to notice and look into and feel into the body, all the lids are blasted off. And in the curriculum, you have all the material for you to work with it.
Yeah. And there's actually a really good metaphor in the meditation world for that, of the if you have a handkerchief that's just completely muddy, you don't even recognize how dirty it is because it's just all brown. And then if you start to clean one little spot, all of a sudden the rest of it looks so much dirtier by comparison. And usually in the meditation world, that's, we don't realize how chaotic and constant our thoughts are until you start to get a moments of peace. And then so when people start meditating for the first time, a lot of times they're like, oh my God, my thoughts are so much crazier than they used to be. This meditation isn't working. Like I'm completely completely out of control. You've just never realized that they've been like that all the time, and it's just starting to feel how untethered and rambunctious they are all the time. And so this is sort of the emotional version of that, where you just haven't realized how much has been lurking underneath the surface, waiting to be felt and met.
But we cannot emphasize or stress the use of meditation and inquiry. And that if you go to Unfettered Mindfulness, there are so many inquiries and meditations there, and it's just, knock yourself out. And that goes for all you old guys as well. If you have slacked a bit on the inquiries and the meditation because you haven't really felt drawn to it, slow down and zoom in. You're missing out. There's something really, really valuable for you there.
Thank you. Let's see. And then Marianne said, I have a few boxes of stuff that I want to give to my son. I will tell them I don't care if they toss it or not. I think he'll want his old Legos, though. Of course, everybody wants their old
Everybody
Lego.
wants Legos.
Absolutely.
But it's all the other stuff. Just make sure that it's not, a pile of poop that you're passing on. Ask him to come over and check it out. Instead of giving it to him, you can ask him to look at it, and he can decide what he want to do with it, and, toss whatever he doesn't want.
And Harlan said, thank you. That was an amazing answer. Okay, good.
Oh, good.
Glad it helped.
Yeah.
Marianne said, oh, and thank you. I took a break, which was very helpful. And Patty said, old guys, geez, I have another identity. That's funny. That's really funny. Okay. And Andrew said, thank you. Oh, we got a couple more. So Anna asked, would it be possible to discuss similarities and differences of Breaking Fetter 8 and how it can overlap with derealization, depersonalization, and what are major important points to be aware of with this big shift?
Well, the first thing is that there's a huge difference between depersonalization and derealization, which is what do you call it?
Stress response.
Pathology, and awakening. There's a huge difference. And I know that there's been a lot of talks this week and last week about it because of the video that came, and the video Angela made about it, and we decided not to talk about it because it's just one person's experience. And what we did talk a lot about was that we need to emphasize more that having a glimpse doesn't make you a teacher. And you really need practice. You need to have this incorporated. Just having an insight to something and believing that now you know everything, now you've seen the light, and there's really something to be said of being in this for 30 years and realizing that there's a reason why that people that pass through all 10 feathers, that they are in the older end of the spectrum, where there's very much Gen X's that is happening too, because we've been meditating for fucking 40 years, There's really something to be said about that. And it doesn't just happen, when you're newly hatched and 20 years old and have seen the light. You haven't. You just experienced the beginning of the journey. I also want to say that we, and that was another reason why we chose not to make a video about it, because we're saying this over and over and over and over and over and over. What else I wanted to say?
We say it so many times I don't think you have to say it anymore.
No, what was it? What was we talked about?
This is our memory, folks. So we were very invested in discussing this like 4 days ago, and now it's just I honestly do not remember what we talked about. I know there are. Yeah, I don't exactly know what you were going for, to be perfectly honest.
What I was going for, it was so clear, and I was lost.
Yeah. I know that.
We're in book writing mode.
We are.
That's why.
But yeah.
If you talk, I'm gonna catch up.
Okay. It's also relevant. seeing how these things affect your daily life is really the
Oh yeah.
difference here. So like in the past, right, when I was in my teens, I was having some kind of derealization moments in stressful situations. And it actually continued. Like it was one of those people that just every now and then, and they became less and less problematic because I was aware that they, what was going on. But effectively, if I was in like a social situation and there were a lot of people looking at me or something, I would like sort of pop out to where like, and there is some similarity in the feel of that experience to like a non-self experience, because all of a sudden the talking was happening and there was like movement was happening, things were going on, but it felt kind of out of control, and it felt like there was this other internal being who was kind of captive in there. It was like um it wasn't like truly that there was no self and things were just happening. It was sort of like the one who took itself to be, Todd, who's like handing out papers to a class of students, is now all of a sudden held captive in this weird back chamber of experience where the body is still handing out papers and the mouth is still talking, but there's also this like added like, I hope he's saying something appropriate and that's like functional and doesn't sound insane, because I have no control over the speech at this point. And so there's this weird breaking of the experience into kind of two. In the no self experience, it's generally not distressing, and that's
Mm.
one really good indication of whether it's pathological depersonalization, sort of an issue,
Or
or
immaturity.
or immaturity, or if it's just that yeah, it feels like the body is just doing its thing, but there's no concern about that. There's no clinging to it needs to be otherwise, or fear about what's going to
Mm.
happen, or feeling like there is still something here which is separate from it, but just not in control any
Mm.
longer. So the actual experience is different, even though they do share some similarities.
I
Yeah.
remember what it was that we keep saying over and over and over and over and over
And you've
again.
forgotten it already?
No, no, no. I
Okay.
know what. That you need to have a solid self.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You need to have a solid self before you do any
Yeah.
of this. We have experienced people that start with the curriculum or come to one-to-ones with you, and they say, I have never had a self. I have never
Yeah.
felt, and they believe that they are in that awakened state where there's no self. But the issue is that they come from a deeply dysfunctional background where they have never had a self.
Yeah.
They have never been taught clear boundaries. They have never been taught a body yes, body no. They have no idea of their own needs, of their own wants, of their own anything, because there has never been any space for them ever,
Yeah.
anywhere. And that needs to happen first.
Yeah,
That needs to
absolutely.
happen first. And it's also why that a lot of times when, for example, with the experience that you go into a room and there's nobody going into the room and the room doesn't exist and it's deeply destabilizing, that's not a comfortable experience, which means it's not what we're talking about. It is a very um it's a very free place to be, where there's no attachment to anything. It's a wonderful place to be, and it's not destabilizing at all.
Yeah.
If what you're experiencing is making you scared or feeling destabilized, then go to the second theta or reach out to a therapist,
Yeah.
and get help, because it's not what we are talking about.
No.
In the eighth theta, which Anna is pointing to, what we're talking about there is where we remove the last spot that you're standing on, which is belief. That you have a belief about something, you have a belief about the universe or the God, or a God, or the God in you, or the face you were before you were born, and all of that. That is dropping in the eighth, and there is nothing to stand on, and there's no one to stand anywhere, and there's no center where you're seeing from or experiencing from. All of that is dissolved, and there's nothing to stand on, and it gives a feeling of freedom. It's not destabilizing in any way.
Yeah.
If what you experience is destabilizing, it's not awakening.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good one sentence hallmark of litmus test.
Yeah, but you need to have had a solid self first, and that is what we
Yeah.
work with in the third fetter. That it's important to have that, to make sure that all the 10 points that we're working with in the third fetter, of self-care for the non-self, that they have been met, and they are met like we're talking about it in the third fetter. That you are um, exercising because the body wants to move. You're not exercising for a purpose, and you're not identifying with an exerciser, but you're just moving because the body feels like moving, and you're going to bed because you're tired, not because you are now one of the good guys that are going to bed before 10. It's really noticing that, but having a very clear sense of your boundaries, a very clear sense of a yes and a no, and I am here. That needs to be in place before you can unpin where that I is.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Was that it?
Well, we got another one, but also actually I think we have a couple more. No, just one more so far. But I also saw in here. Let's see. She said, "Thank you. That's really helpful." And Pajal said, "I tend not to be too much attached to old things, though I have an old record collection that I don't manage to give away. I never use them nowadays." Yeah.
No, but that's one of those things. I mean, if you have, collected T-shirt from that is signed from every member of your favorite band, and or you have been to every single concert they have ever met, and you were a groupie and traveling with them, or anything like that. If you have anything that just feels wonderful, then obviously it's not the same as everything on the third and the fourth row in the kitchen cabinet. It's not the same thing. If it's something that you look at, I love plants, and I can look at my plants and I get so happy. I feel so much vibrant life, and I can sit and smile at a little leaf that came up this morning, and I'm just so thrilled. Obviously that joy that is bringing me is not on par with a picture of my grandma mid-chew. There is a difference. So if you have something like that, I mean, you have how many keyboards?
Yeah.
40 at least. and the double amount of guitars for sure.
No.
Fretless and non-fretless and fretful and whatever you call them.
They all do different things.
They do different things. So they do different things. So of course we have them. So if it's something that brings you joy, that is just like you go like, ooh, when you have it, then there's nothing wrong with having. There's nothing wrong with being a collector. And I also know there's a difference between a hoarder and a collector.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I was going to say on that though, where it's relevant for the self-inquiry is to go, okay, so I have this record collection. I'm not getting rid of it for some reason. So you can ask yourself, why is it that you are holding on to it? Now, if it is like Pernilla said, and you really just get joy out of the fact that this collection is there, you see it and you get this little, then fine, right? Be with that for now. If there is an issue where there's something else that's making you cling to it, so get into that.
Or if there's any Gollum vibes about it.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah, exactly. And that leads me to the next point, which was also do the thought experiment. If this got burned up in a fire, how would you feel about it? If somebody came in and stole the whole collection overnight, how would you feel? And it's that attachment to where it's okay to have it, but it's got to be just as equally okay to lose it, to have it gone. If there's any attachment to, I need to keep it and I'm really going to suffer if this suddenly isn't here anymore, that's something to work with, because then you can go, well, why are you so attached to this physical collection of stuff, which even if it happens after you die, is going to end up utterly destroyed someplace, right? It's going to disintegrate at some point. There is no permanence or substantiality to anything. And so even our most cherished heirlooms are eventually going to turn to some form of dust. So it's really recognizing what it's doing for you in this moment, and if you have any hooks into it having to be there in your life, and what it would mean to you if it suddenly wasn't. I had that, I've mentioned this in other places, that a couple of years ago, there was a house down in the street from us had a fire, and it was a very windy day. And there was like, a good hour or so when it was like a question of whether the whole neighborhood was going to catch. And it was like, okay, well, what will I take in the house if I have to evacuate? And it was basically just passport and cash. And there really wasn't anything else that was like, ooh, I have to put that in the car and I have to put that. It was just like, it can all go. And it's having that where there's a lot of stuff in the house, and there is some practicality to some of the guitars and some of the keyboards. But ultimately, if they got lost, it doesn't bother me. I don't have any particular attachment to any one of them. There's a utility to having them if I want to make music. There's a practicality that I don't want to have to buy them again because they're, I spent money on them once and I'd rather not get rid of it and then have to buy it again. But if it got burnt, it's fine. I'm probably not going to replace most of it. Like, it's just, it's
except
okay.
for all the drums. So you guys thought it was only keyboards and guitars? No. Drums, ladies and gentlemen, drums.
Yeah,
we have a lot of drums.
There are a lot of drums in the house. Yeah, but again,
hence the music. Hence the music. Yeah,
I mean, there's a practicality.
They
to
made a really good track with all the drums.
Thank you. But that's the thing. Would I buy most of them again? No. Would I mourn them? Definitely not. There's no attachment to, oh, I got that drum when, and no, it's fine. They can really go. There's a utility behind it, but there's no attachment in that suffering emotional way. And that's really the key to look for when we're looking at why we have anything and getting rid of anything. Are you going to suffer without it? Is there? And
it's also, instead of looking at it as of getting rid of something, turn it around and see, are there somebody out there that would appreciate this more than what you do at the moment? Are there somebody that would appreciate the pregnancy trousers that you are never ever gonna wear again? Are there somebody that could use that more than you having them in their cupboard? A third and fourth row in the kitchen cabinet. Are there somebody out there that is really, really looking for a julienne slicer? Of course there is. And on Facebook, there, I think it's in every single town by now, there is a buy nothing group where you take pictures of all the stuff and then you put it out on the curb and people will come and pick it up. And it's a great way to give things to people that actually are going to use it and that are looking for exactly that right now. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, I think we have one more. Brando asked, I sort of struggled to figure out where I am in this process. There are many moments where I dissolve into the senses, moments where it feels as if life is a flip book, and it is a constant incineration of now. And yet somehow moments where all of it seems for in it, and I go back to feeling like a singular small mind identified me. I don't even recognize how this happens, but letting fear, anger, guilt, shame, and blame take hold doesn't feel like it's a solution either. I've worked with a non-dual facilitator, but even being in this I've worked with a non-dual facilitator, but even being in his presence drops a lot of the identification that I struggle with otherwise. I think I worry a bit that ego has co-opted some of this, that there's no one that can do anything about this process, and that struggle is just struggling itself, but I don't know that I've grokked or integrated it. It's almost as if I have had experiences of all the places along the fetters, but my body has integrated none of them somehow.
Yeah.
I would appreciate any help or advice, because I've really given up on actively doing anything in this process because it feels like it just starts a loop of painful seeking.
Oh, yeah.
But also living in illusion is inherently not pleasant either.
I completely get you. I absolutely get you. This is one of the big problems with radical non-duality, because they're pointing at the 8th, 9th, and 10th fetter, before we are ready to it. And it is absolutely true that there is just this. There is nothing else. There is not even the thoughts about this. There is just this. What I call one slice. It's a split second of a moment right now. That's all there is. There's nothing else but that. But you cannot have that experience the way that it's supposed to be experienced until you have dealt with all your old shit. If that is still there, if you have had any dysfunctional childhood, if you have any kind of trauma when you pass your high school, if you have, thoughts about, oh, for fuck's sake, and all of those, and if you start to have feelings about people in traffic that are, driving like maniacs and they're really tailgating you, or somebody that is rude to a cashier and you have feelings about that, all of that you need to see through. All of that you need to acknowledge is there, because lying about it is not helpful at all. If you lie about it, the only thing that will happen is that you're going to jump into denialism where it doesn't matter. And it's just a convenient escape. So I don't need to deal with all the bullshit that is here. And it's why there is no way around the first, the second, and the third feather. There's no way around it. You need to look at all this. You need to understand why your body is reacting, because it's not you that is reacting to it. All those experiences you have had from the last trimester until you were 16, all of that is locked in your body. Then you went into adulthood. More things happen where you emphasized your childhood over and over and over and over. All that is locked into your body. So the moment you start to just do a minuscule of exercises where muscles are starting to release all the tension they have, all of those emotions come back. And it's not you it's happening to, but you need to allow it to be there because it's already there. You are pretending that something that is obvious is not there, and that is just gaslighting and making everything worse. So I completely understand you. You're not the first radical non-dualist that we have, both here and on Discord. There are a lot. And it's one of the things that we emphasize the most, that it's not that the radical non-duality is not correct. It's that it's skipping so many steps of the human experience and of the physical experience and emotional experience and spiritual and intellectual experience that we have had, that we need to look at first. And it's not because we're emphasizing and making it real and creating stories about it. We're doing the exact opposite. Because right now, when you pass your high school and you get all those feelings, there are so many stories attached to that. All of that needs to be experienced and expressed without the stories. Yeah. And then you can pass your high school and start to get new memories that are really nice and that you completely forgot about because they were pushed and lying underneath all of the things that you're trying to manage. It's like that, what do you call it, whack-a-mole game where you're trying to hold all of them down at the same time.
I like whack-a-mole because it sounds like you're trying to like wag their tails and you're just like wagging them around.
Yeah,
very,
I like that.
Very different game. Yeah, much less violent.
Yeah,
whack-a-mole
game. So I hope that was what I wanted to say about. That's all I have to say about that.
Good. I was going to say, part of it too is that, we really try to emphasize and overemphasize that this is not a linear path, that you can have experiences that seem to reflect any stages of the fetters. Like they're all available for you at any moment because they're all in place at any given moment.
Yeah.
Some of them more so than others. So when one of them gets seen through, all of a sudden things seem like a flip book. When something else gets seen through, all of a sudden, you can't tell distances anymore. Another one, and it feels like the self is gone. They're momentary experiences. Whether we use terminology like glimpses or shifts or whatever, it becomes very confusing because it's like making something out of nothing,
Yeah.
where it's like saying, well, this was only a glimpse, but that one's a shift because it lasted a little bit longer. And then maybe,
and this one is a permanent
and
shift.
this is a permanent shift. And so it's really problematic when we start to try to create diagnostics for all of these things and categorize, well, that experience was this and that one must be this other thing. So instead of getting hung up on any of that, it's really just about looking into where is the identification in this moment. And it goes back to what we were saying a few questions ago about doing the practice, even if it feels like, even if you have the conceptual understanding that there's no one to do the practice, it's still doing the practice anyway, because there is something to be seen and gotten out of it. And so in any given moment, you look into, where am I identified right now? Why does this feel identified? How does the experience here even send up a flag that says me, identification? There is something which is being assumed about any given moment. And all it is a very curious inquiry to find out why that assumption is coming about. What proof can you possibly find that says that identification is happening right now? What makes this experience feel, and you said, like, you can't tell the difference of how it happens when all of a sudden you go from being more expansive down to the contracted little individual me. It's really being aware of what is the distinction between those two. When you feel that individual contracted little me, is it actually physical sensations that are contributing to that? What is actually in your experience that is different in that moment than it is in the other? And it's just being very aware in each of those instances what the full gamut of experiences are. And then you're able to kind of compare and go, oh, this feels different than that. Well, what is this? I feel tension here. Okay. Is this an indication that this tension is me? Feel into it. Where would you get that proof from if it wasn't some sort of a thought that is attached to it that's creating this belief? So it's just being very, very meticulous with the way that we go through these things. And it is a problem if we decide that it is beyond our scope of capacity to practice, so we're just not going to do it. Because like I said to you, I think it was Andrew that we're answering the first question to, that you are planting a new seed effectively for not doing practice, or you're salting the fields so that the insights, or the practice won't happen, because you're making that less likely with that belief that you're already holding on to. So it's dropping all beliefs and just being open to exploring experience as it shows up, for however it shows up, and with no particular agenda, just allowing that curiosity and natural exploration of the senses to be there all the time. And to be aware, like I like how you had said at the end, it feels like no, it was before that. Yeah, I don't know that I've grokked or integrated it. It's as if I've had all the experiences of the places along the fetters, but my body has integrated none of them. It's like the difference between having a conceptual understanding and even having those momentary recognitions of some of these things as they're happening, but making it into where it's a more stabilized way of being. And that really just comes with practicing it, continuing to do the explorations, because the idea that you have been living, I don't know how old you are, but the idea that you have been living an identified life for most of your life is an idea that this is what an identified life looks like. And then I get these moments of freedom or fetterlessness, or however you want to describe it. And then I'm kind of back to that, but that's just an idea. So you have an idea that it's going to be different when you are in these other ways of being. And instead of having any sort of conceptualization about this is what it should be like, or any of that, it's coming down to what the actual experience is like, and recognizing that the self has never been there. That part of it is not changing. It's just how it is being interpreted that makes all the difference. And there was something else I was going to say about that.
I really would like to emphasize the part about the integration. And it's also why the curriculum is so important, because it's all about integrating all this. Exactly. It's not cerebral knowledge at all. No. The curriculum, it's about really integrating, having this into a lived experience. This is the practical non-duality. This is how you actually, can experience all the things that is happening in your direct experience right now, integrating whatever is occurring in your body. Just being with, like Todd, he so beautifully said, that just when a contraction is happening here, it's just an idea that you have a really good, he has such a great thing that, when he's thinking, then he go like that and goes like, this is the proof that I'm thinking. This is my thinking face. This contraction right now is proving that I'm thinking. And we have that. We have that about so many things that I get like a knot in my throat and contraction in my chest. Oh, that's anxiety. This is how it feels. This is how anxiety feels. But there is no such thing as anxiety. There's contraction in the chest. There's a contraction in the throat. Can you be in a body? It's about really integrating all of it. It needs to come from here and into the body.
Yeah. And I like, because that was where I was going to go, and I lost the train of thought there for a second.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that. But the thing is that you had been practicing whatever it was to be that believed in identified self for 20, 30, 40 years, however long you've been alive. And then now this is the integration is practicing a new way of being in the world effectively. And it's not that you are intentionally doing the practicing, but it's effectively like, just seeing things from a different perspective, experiencing things in the body from a different perspective. And the more you do it, the more it just becomes the new normal. And then you don't think about it anymore, because it's just kind of the way that it's happening. But that integration is something that can take time to happen, because it's just, you're basically rewiring the circuitry that's been going on for, in certain patterns, that it feels like I'm contracted in this way, and now it doesn't. And then that non-contraction happens. But notice what you're making out of those two things. Did those contractions really mean that you are identified? And now the lack of those contractions no longer mean that you're identified. Like, it's just being aware of all of that, but recognizing that all of this is a process of integration that just takes time to work its way into the...
And also the last thing about the body part, whenever we have a reaction, whenever somebody is saying something, accusing you for something, and you either react with anger or defensiveness or anything like that, feeling guilt or shame or anything like that is happening, that deflection that is happening right away, where you forget that there is no self, you forget that there is no I, and you immediately go into defensiveness or reaction or anything like that, that is a sign of things that have not been integrated. That there is something arising in the body that you have not acknowledged is there, and it's too icky to be with, so therefore you deflect and divert and react instead, because this is just uncomfortable. So as long as any reaction is happening, there's a lack of integration. There's something that needs your compassion and your kindness, and that needs to be integrated.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good.
Good.
Thanks.
I think something
that was all on
I think something happened over there.
Let's see. Dahlia said, to truly cherish the things that are important to you, you must first discard those that have outlived their purpose. Marie Kondo. Yeah. Yep. Paja said, thank you for the answer. I think I would not mind if the collection disappears. So there you go. Patty said, wow, I just got a notification that my friend's house is underwater due to a hurricane in North Carolina. So much for stuff. Yikes.
So much love to all people that are experiencing the Helena at the moment.
Yeah. And Jenna said, I have a thinking face. That's hilarious.
But it's in the Daryl that you have. This is the proof that I'm thinking.
I think that's it. Yeah,
That was wonderful.
yeah.
Next week, it's Tuesday Inquiry, same time, and there's a Zoom link that will be posted in the Discord as well.
We have one more follow-up.
Go.
Chanath asked, what Fetter talks about being in the gap between thoughts until a fundamental shift happens, like Angelo describes.
It's the foundational fetters.
Yeah.
It's the first, second, and third that we talk about now.
Yeah. Mostly the first, but yes. Yeah. It's really knowing the difference between a thought and reality and being able to sit in that gap. And that's one way to do it. You know, we're very adamant that there are many, many different practices and different types of practice and inquiry and meditation. And everything, certain things work for certain people, certain things don't work for other people. So one really good way for a lot of people is to notice the gap between thoughts. And there is that sort of silent space that's there when we're not thinking. For some people, though, especially people with like ADHD, that is like impossible. Like there is no gap between thoughts. Like it's just non-existent. So for them, certain other practices might be more useful. But if that works for you, that's great. But it's definitely in that first Fetter realm of just being aware of the space there. And then again, this isn't about conceptualization. It's not about making it into something else. It's not about forcing anything to happen. It's just this kind of natural unfolding that we still can't really say why it happens, but it's just some fundamental change might happen when you do that practice. And it just changes the way that things are perceived or constructed, and potentially that way that the felt sense of I is fabricated.
And I just want to say, for the ones that have ADHD, that the practice that is recommended for you is that, because the way that you experience things is that you kind of like wake up and then you're standing and doing dishes, and then you wake up and then you are, mowing the lawn, and then you wake up and then you're folding laundry, and there's not really a decision. That's one of the big differences between autism and ADHD, that we're very, as autists, we're very, very structured. That then I do that, and then I do that, and then I do that, and I finish this before I do the next. For an ADHD, you can stand and do the dishes, and then you see the lawn and go, oh yeah, the lawn, and then you pick up the lawnmower and out doing the lawn, and you kind of snap into reality when you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? I thought I was doing the dishes. When you catch yourself, when you kind of wake up and you catch yourself, do a few deep breaths and just notice, right now I'm here. I'm mowing the lawn. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. Because you can't do the practices that is recommended for neurotypical people, because you don't have that noticing the gap. That you're past the gap way before. I mean, you're probably not even aware of a gap, and you probably never will be aware of a gap. So just instead, when you wake up and when you snap into it and you're walking with the lawnmower, all of a sudden you're here, then breathe and notice how it feels to be in a body, how it feels to walk with the lawnmower, how it feels with the vibration in your hands and the birds and everything. And next time you wake up, you're in the basement doing the laundry. I thought I was doing dishes and mowing the lawn. Now I'm doing laundry. Okay, then, but you just woke up. Feel the warmth from the clothes in the tumbler. Smell how it smells. Just be present right now, before the next snap happens and you wake up, in the bathroom giving one of the kids a bath. And by the way, your keys are in the freezer.
That's great. I was just going to say too, while we're talking about the watching the gap between thoughts, it's also as a bit of a pointer in that, to recognize that even when it feels like you're in the gap between thoughts, how many subtle instances of thought are still going on in so many different sense fields. And a kind of further pointer, just while we're talking about this, because we don't really talk about this particular form very often, but something that's relevant to notice while you're doing that is also, is there any aspect of your experience right this moment that is not a thought? we have the idea that a thought is only a mental image arising in the mind of a memory, or I'm picturing a blue balloon or a green giraffe, and I'm hearing my voice in my head, or I'm hearing a song that I heard a week ago and it's still going through my mind. We have the idea that those are thoughts. But noticing your direct experience of the visual field, the auditory field of what you're hearing, the birds, the physical sensations in the body, notice if any of those are actually happening in the world itself, or if all of those are just another manufactured thought in your experience that are happening in exactly the same place as those, what we traditionally think of as those mental thoughts that have little gaps in between them occasionally. Noticing, can you get away from any of that? Is there really a space in there between any of those experiences? Or is everything in your experience a type of thought? And this is kind of more of a sixth fetter version of that, where we start to break down that perception of inside and outside. But it's something to notice that even that fabrication of the idea of a thought as being one thing in particular and not something else is super relevant to feel into and to experience. And if you are just, sitting and there's just this gap where there's nothing there, notice if there is still something there that's not even being acknowledged. And it's really being that present and aware with your experience, which helps to diffuse the creation of anything out of anything. So even taking it, if there's a gap between thoughts and you're just present and there's just silence and stillness, instead of even labeling that as like, this is, the true me, the space between thoughts, this is the, this is what everybody talks about, this is spaciousness or presence. Don't even allow any of those to attach to it, because those are also just thoughts. Just allowing things to be precisely as they are. And then you'll start to recognize that there is not a single aspect of your daily life which is anything but thought. And do any of them have any sort of substantiality of their own? All of them are fleeting. All of them are passing. All of them are constantly arising and as fine and almost transparent as smoke. And just being aware of all of that in the moment is extremely potent. So those are ways to just kind of take that practice and go even deeper and deeper with it.
Love it. Love it.
So we had Denise said, if a shift is non-abiding, would you say that the fetter is broken or not? Sorry for the late question. Thanks for the talk. If a shift is non-abiding, would you say that the fetter is broken or not? So
I don't understand the question.
I think by that, do you mean if the experience isn't permanent, does that mean that the fetter is broken or not? Okay, first thing is
nothing is permanent.
Yeah. So yeah.
On Monday, there's going to be a video where I talk about this, that nothing is permanent.
Yeah. And
a shift can't be permanent.
And the second thing is the question of whether, okay, first of all, a fetter doesn't actually exist, right? So it is a bit of a misnomer when we talk about weakening or breaking fetters, because there is something which in the moment is an illusion. It's an experience that is believed. There is something there which is coloring or filtering our perception of reality in very big air quotes. From moment to moment, those perceptions can change. From moment to moment, those illusions can be seen through, those filters can fall. And going forward, again, like we were saying, the more you do this sort of thing, the more they tend to become the new normal, the more that tends to be the pattern that you're living out of. But it doesn't mean that it's completely impossible that it's coming back. It doesn't mean that experience is completely off the table. it's we have an idea that it is like a very clear thing that once it breaks, it is just gone
But
forever.
it's just not how it works.
No.
It's not how it works. First of all, but there's going to be a video on Monday talking about that nothing's permanent and nothing is linear.
And just they clarified.
Yeah.
I meant going back to feeling anxiety after seeing that there is no one to be responsible for any free will, just as an example.
That is absolutely normal. Absolutely normal, because you are now at another level. Everything that you're working with in the feathers is how can I say? If I say the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word childhood, then something comes to mind. And that is something you can take to the second feather, that you can work with, that you can release, that you can feel into, and you create an experience with it. You allow the body to experience and express whatever is there, and then that is not an issue anymore. That has completely sorted itself out. And a month from now, I will say you will rewatch this, and then you will hear the first thing that comes to mind when you think of childhood. And because you have worked with the previous thing, that's not coming up again. Something else will. The next thing in line will pop up. And it might not be in the same theme. It might not be about mom and dad. Now it's about a bully in school. Now, next time it's going to be about granddad's death. Next time it's going to be about different things every single time, because you are a different person. There's nothing permanent. You cannot experience a shift and that will maintain and stay the same, because nothing stays the same. Every single thing you experience, just this meeting here today, have planted so many small seeds. So next time you watch this, a month from now, let's say, you will hear something completely different. You will have some completely different shifts. You will have some completely different understandings. And it's also why I keep emphasizing to not look at the feathers as a linear process, but as a wheel. We talk about them so often, that it's a wheel of identification. And if you have had a shift, for example, regarding anxiety, and you have integrated and you have experienced, and it's not an issue anymore, and then something happens. It can be in the world, it can be in your family, it can be you get fired from your job, or have flood in your basement, or whatever, and suddenly it pops up again. It's not the same anxiety, because you have seen through that. It's something new. You think it's the same because you call it anxiety, so you believe it's the same thing. But if you really, really zoom in and you really, really slow down, you will notice that it's not the same thing. There's something else that is feeding this one. So it's a completely new thing. It's a completely new insight. And everything, your entire takeaway from it is going to be completely different than the first time. It's like when you think of the things that really, really made you so hopelessly sad when you were 4 are not the same things that what makes you hopelessly sad when you're 40. And it doesn't mean that the sadness is not the same thing and the experience is the same thing. Of course it is. But it's just very, very different from when you're 4 and when you're 40. And it's the same with the awakening. It's why we really emphasize there's nothing linear, there's nothing permanent. You need to be open to that constant unfolding that is happening and just be, wow, okay, anxiety today. Great, let's do this. And then just there's no identification in it. So let's work with this. I thought it was going to be something else, but apparently not. But here we go. And then you just embrace it and unpack that one.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. I think that was literally
Is that it? Okay, yeah.
I think that's all.
There was something written.
Thank you so much. The answer cleared some things. Great.
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
Good. Really good. Was that all the questions that were?
Yeah.
Okay, that was it.
All right.
Next week, it's on Tuesday. Yep. We are going to change some Tuesdays. I should have prepared that. I'm so sorry about that. I will write it in the members area, and I will write it on Discord as well, that there's going to be 2 Tuesdays where we are meeting after, and there's going to be 1 Tuesday that we skip. But we're going to show We're going to write it, so you know. I'm not going to say any dates because I'm going to say it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. We see how us trying to mention the retreat, how well that went.
How well we nailed that one.
Yeah. Dates are not a thing either.
Yeah. But next time we meet is on Tuesday 12 o'clock
October
ET.
1st?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah. Quite sure it's October 1st.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think that was it.
Happy end of September.
Happy end of September, if that is the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy the autumn or spring if you're in Australia.
Yes.
Okay, was that it?
I think so.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, so nice. Thank
have
you.
fun.
Thank you so much, Evelyn.
I honestly don't know how to do this.
I think if
Oh,
you
end
click
stream.
the end stream,
I think that's probably a good way to do
probably
it.
it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.